Okay, Glenn's not here, so that's approved.
You got a report? It's important.
Yes.
You sure it's important? Dr.
Yes.
Oh, no. I just let the gentleman know whenever you all was the first one to begin, I was on short time.
JSU Emergency Preparedness. Are we ready? Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jaquan Walker.
I am Ariana Willis.
Justin May.
Randy Fairley.
Justin Grissett.
Taylor Kendrick.
Alexis Johnson.
Kelsey Smith.
Keenan Williams.
Ashika Watts.
And Kamaria Avery.
And we are students working under the advisement of Dr. Dawn McLinn in the Department of Psychology here at Jackson State University.
So we all know that disasters can happen anytime, anywhere, and to anyone, at any place. But are you prepared here at Jackson State? Are other universities prepared? Today we will discuss about how the perceptions of students and how we feel about emergency preparedness, especially on Jackson State's campus. Do you all think that Jackson State's prepared? Okay.
For the introduction, here I have a photograph of Southern Mississippi University. This is back in 2013 when an F4 tornado ripped through the campus, causing a whole lot of destruction. And just this past weekend on Saturday, 2 F2 tornadoes touched down in Vicksburg, and that's where I'm from. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 displaced 90,000 students and faculty from the Gulf Coast and from New Orleans after it struck, and put them out of school for a full academic year. So disaster does strike really close to home here at JSU. So consensus amongst natural disaster and man-made disaster specialists and management scholars support the fact that studies are showing that the frequency of disasters is on the rise. It's increasing in the last 10 to 15 years due to pollution and gas emissions, and what some claim to be climate change. So here's some disturbing statistics found amongst some other studies. 96% of institutions have an official emergency and disaster plan, but 10% don't practice them. 27% have not conducted exercises for training. 20% don't perform after-action reports. 50% do include disaster preparedness as part of like an orientation for students or faculty, so that's a good statistic. 19% have never practiced evacuation procedures. 24% do not have designated safe locations on campus, and 50% do not have a means of evacuating the entire campus-wide students and faculty off the campus if a disaster does strike. Also, studies have shown that students have limited experience with disasters, and they believe that the university will take care of them. They have unusually fatalistic attitudes being developed that disasters are inevitable and will happen and there's nothing you can do about it. So HBCU is a historically black college or university, and it is not on even playing ground with the other institutions of higher learning. Some of the problems we have are a lack of resources, lack of training, at times a lack of leadership commitment. We have state and federal budget constraints. We have political and social policies in place that constrain us, and we also have a lack of research in this area, and that's why we're here, hopefully, to assist in that area and improve it.
Piggybacking off of what Justin just said, the research in this area is very limited, especially on HBCU campuses. However, there have been several studies conducted in the past regarding this certain topic on other colleges and universities. For instance, back in 2014, there was a study conducted on the campus of Florida State University, and the goal of that study was to assess student perceptions of emergency disaster plans and preparedness. The students on the campus were interviewed, and through these interviews, the researchers found that overall, the students did not know much about the emergency preparedness plans in place on the campus. They did know that they had them, however, they had not received any specific training from their administration or their faculty in the event that a disaster were to occur. Also, the interview addressed whether or not mobile text alerts were effective in the notification of disasters to the students. And the students agreed that they enjoyed the mobile text alerts. However, they had a desire for the messages to be differentiated between the other messages that they received from the university, so they wouldn't have to sift through all of the information that they were getting sent.
There was also another study conducted depicting disaster resiliency at 2 different campuses, Xavier University, a HBCU, and Loyola University in New Orleans, a PWI. And they were 2 campuses that were hit by Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And of the 2, Loyola University, the PWI, was far more resilient because they were able to recover their campus quicker because they not only brought forth awareness about the plans that they have, but they also practiced them routinely.
And in the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, there was an article done in July 5th of 2018 regarding this topic. It was basically talking about the pipeline of emergency management is developing without the inclusion of racially and diverse students. Despite the fact that many of the latter actually come from communities that are affected by things like Hurricane Katrina and the tornado and even more natural disasters. There was a study that was conducted by the psychology department, which my fellow peers are going to touch on, that showed what disaster we at Jackson State actually exercise for more than others, and I'm pretty sure you all know what that is. Unfortunately, all the others besides the fire drills lacked severely. On 9/11, which is September 11, 2001, the terrorist attacks that affected us as a nation gave rise to emergency management and FEMA and Homeland Security. But in Hurricane Katrina, when that happened in August 2005, it identified the glaring gaps that we had as far as being prepared for things like that to happen. And as of 2015, there were 4,583 higher education institutions across the United States, and only 9 of those institutions offer programs about emergency management. And based on that data reported to FEMA in 2018, only 10 HBCUs offer educational programs about that.
Now, our research question. So the main goal of our study was to find out what are HBCU students' perceptions of disaster preparedness on their college campus, specifically undergraduate psychology majors here on the campus of Jackson State University. Now, we defined disasters as both natural and man-made. Now, under natural disasters, those can include floods, hurricanes, ice storms, tornadoes, and earthquakes. Now, man-made disasters, those included gas leaks, explosions, oil spills, active shooter incidents, as well as chemical and biological attacks.
So, all this is all well and good, but why is it important? If you look at the maps here, you can see that these are all the states where there are HBCUs. And if you look at them, majority of them are on the southern coast or the east coast. And as recent as 10 years, we've had Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Irene, and Superstorm Sandy. So, with that being said, all those storms hit the southern or east coast. And Hurricane Katrina, if you want to add that, being in 2005, that hit right in the Gulf of Mexico. So we pretty much hit every single state where there's an HBCU. So what makes it unique is that along with active shootings that can happen on a campus, that can happen anywhere in the country. Hurricanes cannot happen everywhere in the United States. And so we have to, as an HBCU, we have to make sure we are prepared for our unique instances that we can have, that being hurricanes and superstorms. And that's all I have.
So based on our experience as students on this campus, we hypothesize that overall, students on our campus will not feel adequately prepared for a sudden disaster.
As for methods, we disseminated an electronic survey to the students enrolled in the undergraduate program, psychology program here on the campus of Jackson State University using the Quadratrix system. The survey consisted of several questions that range from demographic information to asking students about whether or not they felt like they were prepared for disasters here on campus.
As my fellow classmates stated, JSU does lack at proper emergency management. Emergency management should focus on preparing the students for dangerous situations that may take place at any time. The phases in emergency management process should be in more detail, should be practiced more as the year goes on. The 4 phases are mitigation, preparedness, recovery, and response. Mitigation is used to prevent future emergencies and minimizing the effect of an emergency. Preparedness is basically preparing to handle an emergency as in evacuation plans that let us know beforehand to stop food just in case like hurricanes or tornadoes come and we can't go anywhere. So, and then there's response is when you respond safely to an emergency by seeking shelter. There's a tornado. In my opinion, we don't do that very often. So we should start doing that more because some people that's not from the South does not know how to prepare for things like that. And then recovery. So the recovery is really important because a lot of people struggle with the recovery after the situation has occurred. So.
All right, and as previously stated, we conducted a survey amongst our peers. So here are some stats and results from here. We surveyed about 160 peers, and the majority of them were female. 82.58% of them were. 94.19% were African Americans, saying that were on the HBCU campus. 40% of them were seniors, and 41.94% of them were ages 20 to 21. We got some pretty shocking results as regards to how our students felt about our emergency preparedness. 72.08% did not have an emergency plan of their own. 69.68% are not familiar with the university's emergency plan. 71.61% do not know how to evacuate the campus if need be. An overwhelming 83.12% say they did not receive any emergency training during their freshman orientation. 78.57% do not know if the faculty or staff has been trained for certain emergency situations, and 77.27% do not know where the university's fallout location is. And we have a graph here that shows different instances of various disasters that could occur. You have hurricanes, tornadoes, shooters, man-made disasters. But as you can see right here, most of our students feel as though we're not prepared for the majority of these disasters. The only one that students did feel confident were was the fire incident. That is primarily because on JSU campus, we tend to focus on, fire drills, and that's really all we focus on, fire drills.
Okay, so based on all the data collected, one can conclude that Jackson State University is not ready. And the reasons are as simple as us just bringing forth awareness to the students that there is a plan, and also just implementing that plan routinely, and not just one plan, but all of them. A few of the results, as he previously discussed it, that stuck out to me was the fact that of all the disasters that we could be prepared for, students only believed that they were most prepared for fire, which so happens to be, as my colleague said, the only plan that we actually execute and practice so that students can know what to do in the case of one. Among that list, they also felt that they were not prepared for hazards, disease outbreaks, and terrorist attacks. Yes, those are not common, which they will probably prove why we don't practice them often, because it doesn't happen often. But among that list was also hurricanes and tornadoes. They felt that they weren't prepared for that, and that is a big problem because we are, as he mentioned, in a region that is prevalent for having hurricanes and tornadoes. And in conclusion, we can just say that JSU is that we should not only bring forth awareness, but we should implement those plans routinely.
So are we ready? The research shows that we are not ready as a school on Jackson State campus. The further work will be aimed at addressing some of the shortcomings of our current disaster plan. In order to prepare, we should instill monthly evacuation routines, educate faculty and staff, and most importantly, improve the apps that we have to communicate with the students more effectively. In conclusion, the results of this experiment raises questions of preparedness, such as, are predominantly white institutions more prepared than historically black schools? Or do they receive more funding as a factor that indicates if a school is better prepared than another? And that concludes our research.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for this panel? Yes, ma'am.
What's the university fallout location?
It's actually the Reddicks. A lot of people don't know that, but that's where, like, if, let's say we are in a tornado or it's a bomb threat or something, that's where you are supposed to go. But a lot of people don't know that the Reddicks is one of the fallout locations on campus.
So my question is, the research that you all conducted was specific to Jackson State University?
Yes, it was.
It would be nice to see what the statistics or results would be at the other HBCU campuses in the state of Mississippi, because
We're working on it. Dr. McGlynn is actually doing it for right
Yeah,
now.
she's reaching out to
right now.
Okay.
She's doing that.
Gotcha, because see, that could be something that can be brought up to state legislation,
Yeah.
so that adequate funding can be made for that. And you are absolutely correct. It's interesting that most students do feel more adequately prepared to address a fire drill or maybe even a tornado drill, because I'm sure each of you all in public school, those were the two items that were addressed as far as evacuation and disasters. And that was tornado and fire, but nothing else. I will say that we have recently had an active shooter training for all the faculty and staff here, so that in the event something does take place, then we will be prepared for it. Great research, guys. Thank you all so very much.